for today. I'd like to briefly share with you about ShrinkSync. So ShrinkSync is an app and it's a networking hub for therapists. Not only is it a wonderful way of building your private practice through client referrals and client leads, but we also post many different CEU events in your area, including conferences and workshops. Feel free to share any of the association events you have that you'd like to promote as well. And so I hope you're enjoying our ShrinkSync app and spreading the word about it. Now, as soon as the webinar ends today, you do get a free CEU. It's a 1.0 CEU for today. We will have the recorded version on our webinar afterwards. But for today, make sure you fill out the evaluation. It will come up right after we are done with the webinar. So as soon as you close the webinar, you're going to notice that the evaluation will come up, complete that, and you will receive your CEU certificate within 48 hours. Now, about today's presenter, Wendy Douglas is a licensed clinical social worker and has been specializing in dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, for more than 10 years. She currently has a private practice in Beverly Hills and in Sherman Oaks, and runs the DBT skills groups in both Sherman Oaks on Saturdays. She's previously worked at Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health, where she was the team leader for the DBT program at Edelman West Side Clinic. She also has a theatrical background and has been in such shows as The Mentalist, Bunheads, and Private Practice. Please help me welcome Wendy Douglas.
All right. Hi, everybody. We're back. I just drove here in 40 minutes of traffic, like a video game, like dodging potholes and cranes and people, and I'm here. So I'm having to do some distress in terms of centering myself very quickly. Okay, so I can use this. All right, and we can go to the next. Okay. So we're going to talk about interpersonal effectiveness today. So we're going to dive right into the skills. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about the structure of DBT. So I think these are skills you'll find useful for yourself, for your clients, for couples, for anyone. So I don't think you need the framework of DBT to understand it. So I'm going to jump right in. Interpersonal effectiveness is one of the modules in DBT, along with mindfulness, distress tolerance, emotion regulation. So we're just talking about this one module, and in our groups, we take about 6 to 8 weeks to talk about just what I'm going to teach you in an hour. So I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version, but I think it's going to blow your mind. I think if you haven't seen this before, I think you're going to apply it. I'm going to experiment with like doing an interactive exercise with you. So you're going to have to participate and get your typing fingers ready. Okay, so interpersonal effectiveness. Linehan says that with BPD, with borderline personality disorder, behavioral patterns needed for social effectiveness are almost totally a function of a person's goals in a particular situational context. So in any given interpersonal interaction, you have a goal, something you're asking for, whether or not you realize it or not. And a lot of times we actually don't realize it, so we aren't really clear on what we want. And when we teach our clients to get clear on the goals, what they're asking for or saying no to, this whole new world opens up. With BPD, I'll just say really quick, a lot of problems arise when the belief patterns or interpretations about an event. So you'll see clients who are very emotional from something a friend said or something their parent said, but it's really not about what happened, it's about the interpretation of what happened. And so we spend a lot of time in the emotion regulation module teaching what is your interpretation of any given event. Hello, good morning. I like reading the little things below. If you've done CBT before, it's very similar to a core belief. You'll hear that. So we try to draw out what people are interpreting in their interpersonal interactions and eliminate that and get them to be very clear on what they're saying. You'll see in just a second. And I only couch this in these terms so you understand why we're talking about this in DBT, but those with BPD often end relationships prematurely because the interpretations of any given event are so extreme. They say, well, this person hates me and I'm never talking to them again, and they chop off. I call it being a relationship chopper. They just chop the heads off of a relationship, and it's really painful and horrible, right? And then there's a sense of abandonment because there's no one around. Problems with distress tolerance make it difficult to tolerate conflict. Well, I think that's true for all of us, right? I mean, when you're in a interpersonal conflict with anybody, it feels kind of icky and uncomfortable. But if you can sustain that in a relationship, I mean, that's sort of the sign of a true friend, right? Someone you can get into it with, tolerate that, and get through it and repair. But those with BPD, but you don't have to have BPD. It's just when there's interpersonal problems, a lot of people have trouble sustaining or tolerating any kind of conflict. So we're also trying to teach those skills. And those with BPD often vacillate between conflict avoidance and intense confrontation, right? So it's either like, oh my God, I can't deal with this at all. I just can't call that person back, or really intense confrontation with an intensity that doesn't match what's actually happening. That sound familiar? Mm-hmm. So this chunk are the skills teach to deal with this little pleasant little list. So I'm going to jump in. So here's what we teach. Get ready to have your mind blown. Marcia Linehan, founder of DBT, creator of DBT, founder, I don't know, teaches these three things. In any given interpersonal interaction, you are prioritizing one of these three things: your objective, what you want, your self-respect, how you feel about yourself, or the relationship with the other person. Diane and I, my co-facilitator, created the pie chart. She doesn't do it that way, but I think it's so much easier to see. So in any given interaction, these things are present. Now I want you this morning to set a situation you have with someone in your life. It can be big, it can be small. And if you have some scratch paper, that would be great. You can go get it now, and a pen. I would love to see you start to work on that as we discuss these three things. Next. Okay, so I'm going to give you a personal example of something happening in my life. My neighbor behind me, so it's my house and the neighbor behind me, I'm out in my backyard gardening, and I hear this beep, beep. I mean, sometimes every 10 seconds, sometimes every 30 seconds. It sounds like a smoke detector, like someone, you know, when the smoke detector beeps when the battery's low. And at first, it's not really that annoying. You can kind of like, but then you're like, oh my God, stop. Like, that thing is so annoying. So I'm sitting out there going, this beep is like, there's a smoke detector back there that's going off. I wonder what's going to happen. And so this goes on for the extent of the summer. Now, they just moved in, so this is going on during the summertime, right? I'm out there trying to enjoy the yard. And so I'm in my problem-solving mode, like, okay, I can kind of live with it, but I kind of can't live with it. It's sort of not, the objective in my pipe sort of slowly growing, right? I'm like, what the heck is that noise? And I'm thinking, oh, maybe it's like the squeak on the top of the house. So finally, I realized my objective. I have to prioritize this objective. I can't live with a smoke detector going off for months, right? So my objective is actually quite large. I'm thinking about it. Like, do I want to preserve this relationship? They are my neighbors. They're renters. So, I mean, I don't really know. So the relationship is kind of shrinking and my objective is kind of growing. And my self-respect is in there because I want to handle this in a way that makes me feel good. I don't want to go yelling and screaming and then kind of feel like, ooh, I don't really like myself for that. So I ended up going over there, finally, getting up the courage to ask. It turns out, you know what? It is a smoke detector, but not really. It's an African parrot making the sound of a smoke detector. What? Yeah, so this African parrot's out there mimicking smoke detectors, so it's part right. So anyway, the outcome is still to come. But my objective became quite large because I was willing to sacrifice a bit of my self-respect and the relationship to get my objective. Does that make sense? So I'm going to show you this next slide. If that relationship was really, really important to me, like, I'm trying to think what would make that, like, what if I lived near the beach and those neighbors were my beach access? And there's no way I'd want to ruin that relationship. My objective might be shrinking, right? But my objective, if it's big enough, I might want to grovel. Please, can you, like, I'll do anything. I'll pay you to put that darn bird inside. Like, my self-respect might get quite small. So these are the type of things we want our clients to consider in any given situation, because you're often not conscious of it. So what I see a lot is that clients' self-respect wedge is like sometimes really, really small, and they just feel rotten about themselves, and they're prioritizing the relationship as this huge thing, and they're afraid to get their objectives. So when all of those things are really out of balance, you get behavior that doesn't feel good, and a lot of myths around what's going on. So if you're really clear about this, it's helpful. So does that make sense? So in your own example, think about someone in your life where you're either wanting something or wanting to say no to something. So let's think about an objective that you have. So this part of the box here. Whoa. Okay, the mouse is really sensitive. Sorry, I was supposed to outline the pie, but I didn't do that. Let's go to the next slide. So I want to show you something. So I want you to ask yourself, what result or change do you want from an interaction? So what's your goal? And what do you have to do to get the result? So are you asking? Are you having to say no? And we're going to do this skill called a dear man. You're like, what the heck's a dear man? That's what our clients say. What are you talking about? There's a lot of acronyms in DBT. I have one client who thought it was a deer man, like a man with a deer head, which I actually thought was quite endearing. I know that's like, it's like deer man, DEAR. So our objective, we want to obtain a legitimate right. We want to get someone to do something for us, or we want to say no to unwanted or unreasonable request, or resolve a conflict. Or sometimes we just want to get our opinion or point of view taken seriously, right? So those are all of our objectives. So here it is. Here's the dear man. So when you are asking for something or saying no, this is the format we teach our clients. So you're going to describe what the situation is with no emotion at all, just the facts. So if I went to my neighbor, I would say, I know you moved in June, and when that happened, I started hearing a beeping noise about every 30 seconds in the backyard. There's no emotion in that. It's just the facts. So as you're thinking about your own objective with a friend or family member, really get in your head. I want you to start to write out your dear man. So describe the event. So you're not going to say, oh, so annoyed and it's so hot. Oh, you're just saying the facts. Then after you do that, I mean, this alone is kind of revolutionary and very difficult for some clients to do, because it's very difficult to just say what's happening without any feeling or emotion. But it's so helpful. I think one of Marsha's example in the workbook is, you know, your husband is coming home late every night, not telling you, and she simply says, you know, for the last 3 nights you've been coming home after 10 o'clock, the end. Like there's no emotion to it. So then we get to our E, the express. That's when you can add in the feeling. So with my bird, their bird, it's really frustrating me. It's making it difficult for me to enjoy the peace and quiet in my backyard because it's so distracting. And this is a tricky part too. So for your example, write down your E, write down your feelings about it. And then we're going to get through the A, the assert. So this is where you're either going to ask for something or say no. And for some people, this is revolutionary because oftentimes are expressing something like, oh my gosh, that makes me so mad. But then what is it you want? What is it that you're asking for? What's your objective? Do you want them to stop? Are you wanting simply, I mean, I use this in couples a lot. What are you wanting right now? Are you wanting them to validate you? Then ask for validation. What I need right now is some validation. For me, I actually haven't done this yet with the neighbor because it kind of blew my mind that it was a bird. I just stood there like, that's a bird? So I didn't do my A yet. I've got to go back and do my A in the deer man. But I think I'm going to say, you know, I'm going to ask that you keep the bird inside the house. I'm just going to have to ask. So put your A down. You could be asking for something or saying no. And then reinforce. What do you need to say to get this person to want to do this for you? What will help? Like it could just be as simple as I really appreciate it. Or I suppose a bribe would be helpful. Not kidding. That would be reinforced actually. She's saying, explain the positive effects of getting what you want or need. So, or you might want to clarify the negative consequences. So if I was really committed to my objective and wanted to take this bad boy all the way, I might say, listen, if you are not, you know, if you're not able to do something about that noise, I'm going to have to like call the landlord or proceed with a complaint with the local whatever. So I could say that. I mean, I kind of haven't decided yet, but that's the deer. So that's kind of the meat and potatoes of what you're going to say. So this is the what. And this is the how we're going to say it. So we want to stay mindful. We don't want to bring in examples of other things. So if the neighbor's like, well, you left your trash cans out for 5 weeks, and I would say, let's talk about that next, but first let's finish this about the bird. The bird. I'm so mad about this bird, Anita. I'm like, what the hell? It is a smoke detector going off. Sorry, I'm in emotion mode. My neighbor is probably like a therapist on like in the training. No. I'm kidding. They're not. That'd be awesome because then I've done my deer man. So staying mindful. So she uses a technique called broken record. So if someone's starting to distract from the conversation, you would just repeat. Now, what I'm asking for is that, you know, we find a way to resolve this over and over. Broken record, just coming back calmly, and then appear confident. I mean, you'll find that you don't want to teach clients to. You want them to use their confidence. So you don't want to approach something like, I'm just wondering if, you know, and it's funny because we all do that, right? Like, oh, would you mind? Like almost like with an apologetic tone. So when we do role plays in group, we want to be confident, our shoulders back, saying, hey, I'm wondering if there's a way we can resolve this, period. So appear confident takes a lot of practice, right, in person. And then negotiate. Like what are you willing to give or negotiate with? So what if they said, hey, what if we, you know, kept the bird inside for like every afternoon? We'll bring it in at noon and put it back out at 6. I think I could live with that, something like that. So as you write out your own Dear Man, I want you to think about what you might be saying. And you can go back and decide, you're going to draw a circle and decide what part of the pie chart, how important is that objective in your life. It may be smaller than you thought as we go through this. You can also draw 2 pie charts. Sometimes we talk about this. There's the ideal pie chart, like how your wisdom, how your intuition feels like your pie chart should look. And then there's kind of what you're doing. So right now, my pie chart actually doesn't look like this because I'm not really pursuing this objective very aggressively. I would say I'm prior to my relationship probably looks a little bigger. So I'm going to show you the relationship skills. So my pie chart probably looks like this. So I have an ideal pie chart and then a pie chart of what I'm doing. Does that make sense? So here are the skills for the relationship piece of the puzzle. So this part of the pie, if you're prioritizing a relationship, this is what you're going to prioritize. Acting gentle, being interested in what the other person is saying. You're going to validate the other person and she gets heavily into the levels of validation and what that's like, and really having an easy, light manner, a tone that matches what's going on. And the main question you want to ask is, how do you want to feel? How do you want this other person to feel about you when this is over? Do you want them to think you're a crazy, screaming neighbor? I'm asking myself. And what do you have to do to keep this relationship? So really, this is about tone. This is about stepping out of yourself and really hearing the other person. My example of this pie chart, I want you to think about like being in a relationship and you come home, you've had a long day at work, and you're just ready for bed. Oh my God, there's you've been fantasizing about like getting in bed, watching Netflix, Making a Murder. You know that one that's on right now? It's really good. You can't stop binge watching it. And you get home and your partner's like, babe, I got the worst stomach ache. I think you're gonna have to drive me to the ER. And you're like, oh, no, not right now. Like inside, right? But ultimately, your pie chart, you're prioritizing the relationship, right? I mean, your self-respect, that your Netflix and your warm jammies is probably shrinking as he starts to double over in pain and wonder if he has appendicitis. And not like this has happened before. It's quite serious. And so all of a sudden, obviously, your priority is the relationship. You know, I guess your objective is to watch Netflix. Your self-respect is, oh wait, the yellow one. Okay, yeah, is how you feel. And then the objective would be to watch Netflix. Well, there's a crisis going on, so you're prioritizing the relationship, right? So, however, what would this look like if this is like the 10th time this has happened? And it turns out every time it's just indigestion. I think the relationship pie might shrink a little bit and your objective might grow. You might be like, take an Uber, dude. Just kidding. Maybe not. But these are the things we want to consider. I must be in a sassy mood being in all that traffic, right? I'm like in rare form. Okay. Hope this is all making sense. Nothing like good 40 minutes of traffic to get your presentation going. Okay. So here's the self-respect pie chart. So this is yellow. So when the self-respect is the most important thing, this is her acronym. Be fair. You don't want to apologize for what you're asking for. You really want to stick to your values. So if this is something you're clear on that's really important to you, you want to be clear about that, and you want to be truthful, authentic. This is really about how you want to feel about yourself. So for instance, I'm trying to think of an example of self-respect where it's just how you feel about yourself is the more. Maybe your boss at work asks you to do something that's kind of unethical, and you really think about it, and you think, no, I'm not going to do that. Like this, I'm going to sacrifice the relationship to prioritize how I feel about myself. So if the relationship has to diminish or end or change in some way, that person's going to have angry feelings. I'm going to cope with that because when I really think about it, my self-respect trumps everything. I don't even care if I meet my objective. So those are the three. How are we on time?
We're good. We're at 24.
Okay. So I would love to hear one of your pie charts. So as we keep going, if someone has a pie chart that they would like to plunk out on the keyboard, you can say what it is.
Percentage.
Yeah, just percentage, and you can write. What I like to do is write shorthand. So objective is O, and then relationship is R, and then self-respect is SR. So think about if you'd like to share something. There's so many examples, right? In any given situation, you can come up with one. But I would love to hear what you come up with for your own examples for a pie chart, right? So anything you're considering in a relationship or with with a neighbor or a parent. And then I can probably come up with more examples. But think about it for a second. I would love to see you come up with an example that you have. I mean, I can try to think of some more. She uses an example for, let's see, let me get one of the objective. Let's go back to the objective. One of Marsha's examples is someone trying to get their rent deposit back from the landlord. And the landlord says, no, you know, there's some nicks in the wall. And you can imagine someone getting really upset over that. And the objective might be really, really important if it's $2,000 and this is the only way they're going to move into their next apartment. You actually might be willing to grovel, so your self-respect might shrink quite. I mean, it might be nothing. If you're willing to grovel for that money, then your objective might be a huge piece of the pie. And the relationship also might be very small because you're not going to have that landlord again, and you're willing to sacrifice the relationship. So that's one of the things. Okay. Objective, making dinner less often. I hear you. My friend, his name is Joe, Trader Joe, cooks all of my dinners. Okay. I make the dinner every night. Oh, here's the deer man. Great. So the objective is making dinner less often. So I imagine this is approaching another person. D, I make dinner every night. I feel taken advantage of. A, so this is the ask. So if you look down here, the person's typed this out. I want to share the responsibility. I would rephrase that to say I'm specifically what you're asking for. So I know that's sort of a splitting hairs, but I would say, would you be willing to cook Tuesday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday? So you're asking a direct question. I would like you to make dinner 2 nights a week. So there's your ask. So the R is actually your A. So I would like you to make dinner 2 nights a week. So let's come up with, Nina, your R, your reinforce. What do you, how are you reinforcing this? What are you doing to make this person want to do that? What's the payoff for them? Can people brainstorm some payoffs? I mean, if it's going to change the course of a relationship and relieve resentment, that's a huge payoff. And they will get what they want to eat. Okay, so there's one payoff that you get to choose whatever you want. How exciting. And I would think that if you're feeling taken advantage of, that if that feeling goes away, how does that change the relationship? I would say, hey, I feel like if you were to do this, I would be so much happier. Things would be a lot more in balance. I would have more time to do other things, and then I will be happier. But what's the payoff for them beyond what they get what they want to eat? Because I imagine some people don't care what they want to eat. They'd rather be, here's your dinner. So I think you're going to have to sell this one a little more. I would also, because this sounds like it needs a little more finesse with your D, I would say I make dinner every night. I've been doing that for, a year about straight now. We've sort of gotten to this habit. I would expand on the D. I would expand on your E, and I would expand on your R. And it depends. So some people are typing. Let's see what they have to say. And if depending on what your pie chart, I would love to see, Nina, what your pie chart is. So what is the percentage of this objective and what's the percentage of the relationship? Yes, shorthand is fine, of course. I know you're trying to do it very quickly. It's a lot to type out. Because if the relationship, and we're going to get to this in a second, is how you prioritize the intensity of asking. So, right, so we can all get down with what this looks like, but we want to get the intensity right. So as they're thinking about this, let's look at the intensity. Percent, okay. Percentage. Objective is 75%. So this is really important to you. The relationship 15. So you're willing to go down and fight for the dinners to change, and self-respect 10. So you're willing to grovel to get this person to make dinner. Grovels, maybe extreme. I think this is a wonderful technique to use in couples therapy. Yeah, totally. Actually, I saw a couple last night and we kind of touch on this. Not in these terms, but pretty much. Yeah, I would think if you're objective, if you're really done with making dinner every night, you're like fed up, I think that you need to expand on your dear and really sit down, and the tone is more serious. So so you're willing to sacrifice some self-respect, and you're willing to like really make sure they understand this objective. So as we do this, I want you to think about the right amount of intensity. So what you're going to do, Nina and friends, is there are 10, well, there are 10 aspects that determine intensity. And this is a great handout, because what she does is we're going to total up our points. So if something gets 10 points, then that means the intensity is really, really high. You're going to not take no for an answer. But if you total up all these things and it's a 1 or a 2, you're not even going to ask, you're just going to hint. And that's everything in between. I'm going to show you what the handout looks like for the code. So this is the code we're going to work with, but we're going to go through each one, and for your issue, whatever it is, I want you to consider these factors. And I honestly think I'm missing one, so I'm going to go through it with you right now. So priorities. Is this objective really important? So if you have a pie chart where the objective is the bigger part, I want you to give yourself a point. What page? 132 in the skills manual, if you have it. So if the goal is the biggest part, I want you to give yourself a point. If it's a good time to ask and the other person is in the mood, I want you to give yourself a point. So if it's a really bad time, if the person is about to get fired at work, or someone just died, you're not gonna ask, if they're gonna make dinner, right? So I want you to think about that. For me, my neighbor, is it a good time to ask? I think, I'd go over there on a Sunday where, I wouldn't go after work where people might be stressed out. You want to think about your timing. Do you give as much as you take? So it'd be very difficult to ask someone to start making you dinner if they're doing a million other things for you and this is like your job. So you want to consider, are you giving as much as you take in the relationship? And this is a good one to ask with friends, or anybody. Is the relationship, is there some reciprocity? So give yourself a point if you're giving as much. Authority, are you responsible for telling this person what to do? Are you their boss? No. So if you're not responsible for telling them what to do, if you don't have authority over them, then you're not going to give yourself a point. Capability, are they capable of giving you what you want? Now this is very interesting, right? Because some people, I could ask my mom for certain things, and she's just maybe not capable of giving me, if it's like validation, she just may not be capable of doing that. So you have to be clear, like, is in the relationship, is this person really truly able to give you what you want? If you're asking for something, you've got to be clear about that. What if the relationship is equal? You're not going to give yourself a point. So if you don't have any authority over them, just leave it blank. So it's not a point. It's just friends, or partner, depending on the situation. Relationship, where are we? Self-respect, capability. Self-respect. So do you usually do things for yourself? So are you careful to avoid acting helpless when you are not? So if this allows you to continue, if this fosters your self-respect, I want you to give yourself a point. So I think for the dinner situation, that would be a yes, right? For my neighbor situation, I would give myself a point. is this an appropriate question given the relationship? So is what you're asking appropriate? I'm thinking an example where it would be inappropriate. It would be like, you know, going to, sort of like if you're on a, I'm thinking of like being on a call with insurance companies and getting upset with like the person on the other end of the phone, and they can't really do anything about it. So it's not really appropriate to that relationship, and you sort of need to go to a different person. I guess this is what I deal with all the time, right? You're on the phone with an insurance company and they have no idea what you're talking about. And you're like, oh God, this is not the right person. This is not appropriate to this relationship. Make sure this is the right relationship that you're talking to. Homework. Do you know all the facts? So what if this person doesn't know how to cook dinner? What if they've never like lifted a pan in their whole life? It might be a little unreasonable. The microwave. That's right. I didn't know how to boil an egg till this year. It's actually more complicated than you think because you have to like make sure the water cools. Anyway, long-term versus short-term goals. Will not asking keep the peace now but cause problems later. Give yourself a point. And then what am I missing here? Authority, right. Oh, I missed one down here. Sorry, add another one. It's called rights. Good luck. Is the person required by law or moral code to give you what you want? So is this their job? Is this in their job description? Is this what they're required to do? I mean, if I go up to an ice cream shop and I ask the person to give me ice cream and they won't, I mean, that's their job. It's like, not that they're required by law, but I mean, by moral code, that's what they're supposed to do. So if yes, raise the intensity of asking. So you should be able to total all of this up to get a number of points. For me, I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm about a 6 for me. So remember, this one down here is rights. Rights. Is the person required by law or moral code to give you what you want? So I want you to total all this up and see if what it is. And so if you're somewhere down in the 1s, 2s, and 3, you're really about hinting and taking no for an answer. If you are in the middle, it's more about asking gracefully and confidently, but possibly taking no, maybe resisting no. But once you start get up to 7, 8, 9, you're asking confidently or even firmly, and you're in a 9 and 10, you're insisting and negotiating, you're keeping on trying. And if you're at a 10, you are not taking no for an answer. You're just going to keep asking and asking and asking. So does that make sense? I think for the clients, when we do role plays using these skills, so starting with your pie chart, going through the Dear Man, and getting them to really understand the intensity of asking, when someone goes in with this amount of clarity, we usually see success in outcomes. It's sort of an incredible thing to guide clients through. We find that role plays are really important because you're really doing the Dear Man actually takes a little bit of practice. Because this part, the describe and the express, is quite difficult, especially with more complicated situations. So I'm wondering what you think about these skills, and if you would be able to apply them with a client. We play a game with this where, you know, you can use dimes and you throw in a dime for every aspect, and then if it adds up to $1, then you know. It's called the dime game. She has it in here, that the intensity is really, really high. And I imagine that if you did all this with a client, talk them through it, it's tough to do in one session, I find, because there's so much explaining to do, but you could start introducing just the pie chart in a session. We reference it all the time in our group. Well, what's your pie chart like? And then oftentimes if people aren't asking for what they need, we'll say, it looks like you need to do a deer man, or hey, you did a deer man, you didn't even know it, you asked for what you want. So we really want to encourage the right amount of intensity as well, right? So if I'm in a restaurant and I'm wanting a glass of an Arnold Palmer, I'm not going to do a deer man and say, I have thirst. I have not had an Arnold Palmer in 3 days. I'm very thirsty. May I have an Arnold Palmer? I would really appreciate it. You're just going to ask for it. So you've got to make sure your deer man is correct. How do you use these techniques with a BPD client? Well, in our groups, we teach them. So it takes about 6 to 8 weeks to teach all of this. And we're constantly coming back to it. So in my group, in the beginning, we do a little share about something that's happened in the week. And oftentimes clients will kind of get into a story, but we'll always bring them back to, hey, let's stop for a second, take a look at what your pie chart was with that person and get them to rethink it and really understand, well, what I did was, I really prioritized the relationship because I didn't tell my friend it was really bothering me that they never come to my house. And so I guess, they'll think about it. I guess my relationship, I prioritized to be 60%. I really don't want it to be that way. So we just direct them to think about it, use their wise mind or their intuition, and redo the pie chart. So I always start with the pie chart. Well, why don't you think about really what you want? What is your pie chart? What could it have looked like? If someone needs to ask for something, I'll always point them back to doing a deer man. Okay, well, let's try it. Try it right now. Let's do it. What does your deer man sound like if you're not doing it? What about a deer man? No, it sounds like you have to set a boundary. So we just are constantly directing them back to these skills, probably the most of any skill, just next to mindfulness, because in order to be able to do this, you have to be mindful of what's going on. So we're just constantly pointing them back to the skill. So really that's what we teach in about 8 weeks, maybe 6 to 8 weeks. In a nutshell, that's really the shell of what we teach in interpersonal effectiveness. So that's one of the modules in DBT. I wrote out the modules for you so you can see what they look like. So in our group, we do 2 weeks of mindfulness. This is one of the cornerstones of DBT, teaching anything that keeps you in the present, meditation, exercises to really get distance from thoughts and emotions with a non-judgmental stance. And of course, there's tons of research out there on the effectiveness of mindfulness right now. But really, if you think about it, clients have got to be mindful in order to employ any of these other skills. So if you are in emotion mind or overwhelmed by emotion and in your cognitive distortions, as they say in DBT, or really connected to some interpretations or myths about what's going on, you're really probably not in a mindful place of what's going on in the present. If you're dissociating or ruminating about the past or worrying, anxious about the future, that's not being mindful. So in order to be present, to use the skills, you've got to be mindful. And there's also a lot of evidence that shows that people who are doing meditation and mindfulness disconnect from their ego a bit, so the suffering becomes less, things become less painful. So we spend 2 weeks on mindfulness, about 6 to 8 weeks on interpersonal effectiveness. We go back to mindfulness again and do 2 weeks, and then this takes emotion regulation is the whole module about teaching clients to identify emotions. Those of you who did the training last time, we did a training on emotion regulation. That's about 8 to 10 weeks. And then we go back to mindfulness again. We do this in between every module. And then we do about 6 to 8 weeks of distress tolerance. So that's the crisis skills and just building resilience. And so that's what our DBT group looks like. And to do all of this and teach all of these skills takes about 7 months, 6 to 7 months. I'd say about 7 months now, because the workbook is fat now. It used to be really thin, but now it's great. Actually, she expanded on it. So that's what it looks like. My group, I finally got smart and did some information about my group, just for a plug, because so many people ask about it. I've got two groups, but the main thing is clients have got to be in individual therapy to join a group, just so they get the support. They don't necessarily have to be in a DBT with a DBT therapist to be in my group. Our skills group is more of a life skills group, so you don't have to have BPD to join. You can have depression, anxiety, but if clients are not getting enough traction and you really see they have problems with their emotion regulation and interpersonal conflicts, this can be a great adjunct to individual therapy. We find that the clients really take off. It just adds so much more. They grab onto the skills and then they just kind of fly with it. And we see people make huge changes. And so it's a lot of work. There's a lot of homework. There's a lot of, it's very emotional. So I do people have got to be pretty motivated to do this, but all the therapists of the clients in my group really love it. It's very, very helpful. So that's my plug for the group this time. Are you aware of any skills group in South LA County? Well, Harvard UCLA is a huge hotspot for DBT. I'm not sure how people qualify to get in there. I know they might have to either have Medi-Cal or Medicare, or qualify for their program. South LA, there are groups, and actually, I don't know if any of you know of JJ DeSantis, the guy who does the group list. What's his name? Jim DeSantis. There is a group list that Jim compiles that has a list of every group in LA, and it's amazing. It's 100 pages, and there's a list of DBT groups. There's probably about 20 of them. And oh, great! So the group list, it's here. If you click on, everyone should have this resource. The group list is amazing. It's got everything. You can look it up by location. You can look it up by topic. So if you want, there's not many DBT groups that are open like this one, though. We have people coming from all over. I do have some other resources here, and then we'll get to questions. This is my website in case you want to refer to it. I put this on here. I just watched the documentary this week called Happy. Has anyone seen that? Oh my gosh, it's so wonderful. It's about all of the researchers that are studying happiness, which is sort of a new field in the past 30 years. But they sum up in about an hour the things that make people happy, and it's quite amazing. And a lot of what we teach in DBT in terms of building a life worth living is echoed in this documentary. I found it really amazing. So if you want to watch, I'm on a documentary binge. I'm watching so many documentaries. If you want to know about documentaries, I'll tell you. But this one's good. Happy is really good. It really synthesizes all the data. Talks about community and the people who live longer and feel happier have a sense of community. The more people focus on business and money and are separated from others, the less happy they feel. Just important to remember as we help our clients reach their goals and seek out a life worth living. I just found that documentary to be really interesting. I guess Japan and the United States, we have the least amount of happiness because we're so disconnected and focused on material things. Very interesting. And then I just added this other documentary here, Awake. This is about, I don't know if you know who he is, Yogananda. He has the Self-Realization Fellowship here in LA, but it's about his story and coming, one of the first crossovers from India to bring mindfulness and meditation over to the United States in the 1920s. And they talk about some of the science behind mindfulness. I just think he's a really interesting guy. And if you kind of want to know the source of the Eastern crossing over to the West, it's a good one. I have a reading list on my website, but The Buddha and the Borderlines, a good one. It's kind of funny. It's a good one for clients to read. They find it very validating. She was a news reporter who has BPD and then wrote a story about her experience. And then for those of you that have heard of Stop Walking on Eggshells, this is a little bit softer, Loving Someone with Borderline Personality Disorder. It's a new book. It's a little less judgmental and a little softer approach. I just thought I would put that in there. I have also, you can also check this out. This is the DBT. This is Marsha Linehan's book. It's only about 25 bucks online, so I recommend getting it if you ever want to refer to any of the handouts. It's pretty good. This is what it looks like. And all of the handouts are free, so you can also access them here. They're just not by page number. It's a little bit hard to navigate, but here, if you copy and paste this website here, you can have all the handouts for free, and she says you can print them out. And then I just added who I refer my clients to for meditation workshops. There's Inside LA. There's also Against the Stream, which is they have a 12-step, I guess it's not 12 steps, not AA, but a non-religious, non-spiritual approach to substance use. And so they use meditation, but they also have other classes. So I send a lot of people here and they like it. And then UCLA has a big mindfulness program. So any questions at all? Just talked for 51 minutes.
To the worksheets there in the chat. Can't copy the image. Do they have to buy the book?
No, you don't have to buy the book. Well, the problem is this image is on the PDF, so they can't get it in there. So she's wondering if you could just type it.
So which one, the Inside LA?
No, the DBT handout's right here.
Type it out.
So anyone else want to use their pie chart as an example, since we have a few minutes? Or are there any questions about how you might use this? It's pretty straightforward, but it's really about practicing it.
Go back to that one. So,
oh, I'm sorry, Anita. Here you go.
Set DBT. Am I supposed to type that whole thing or just until
Yeah,
DBT?
start with it.
I typed the whole thing until DBT.
I think you need the R and the skills, you need all of it. Oh, there you go. Someone put it in there.
I just put it in, but I don't think I included the stuff with the R. Well,
Wonderful. Well, this is sort of a glance into DBT. If you don't know anything about DBT, really what we do is we teach the clients a series of skills in these modules, and you just got a big chunk of it. You got a fourth of the skills, and the idea is that over time, clients learn the skills, and you have someone coaching them always back to using the skills, and it develops a framework to have a life worth living, reduces self-harming behavior, increases quality of life, and it really does work. Yeah, you can also download the webinar on emotion regulation if you like, and so maybe at some point we'll do mindfulness and distress tolerance, and then you'll have sort of the full range. If you are interested in more trainings, page not found. If you're interested in more trainings, you can go to Behavioral Tech. That's Marsha Linehan's website. It's difficult to find trainings on DBT, isn't it? Right? And there's not a lot of people that get out there and talk about it without doing a real comprehensive overview. I know Harvard does 2-day trainings if you're on a team. You know, it's tough because with DBT, she does have research that the skills group alone is effective, but the full comprehensive program requires that therapists be DBT trained and sit on a team to get the support they need with very difficult clients, because otherwise there's a lot of burnout. And also that therapists will do phone coaching with their clients. And I find that with clients who are higher functioning and the skills can be enough, but if you have someone with BPD who's self-harming, they really do need a comprehensive program that has all the nuts and bolts. And Marsha has made that really clear in her research that that's what's effective. It's not just a partial program that's effective, that someone who's really suffering, it's not enough just to have individual therapy. You really need all the pieces to call it DBT and to make it work. So this is just some exposure to what the skills are, but to know that a client really you probably need to refer them out. They really need to have a therapist doing the phone coaching, and be in a DBT group. And some clients that need an IOP or more intensive programming, there's a few places. There's Clearview in Westwood and in Venice. There's CBT California, which also has maybe more affordable DBT because they do use interns. There's Westside DBT. Sasha Ginsburg has her program. So these places that I know, there's DBT in Woodland Hills and in Glendale. So if you do look at that group list, I think everything's written out there. But if you have a client that you feel like could benefit from just the group and doesn't necessarily meet all the criteria for maybe crisis or meet the criteria for BPD, you could send them to my group and they'd probably fit right in. So someone's got.
Someone else.
So someone copy and pasted the little R.
Oh yeah, that one did it.
So,
They'd have to register.
you shouldn't have to register. If you type in the R, it should just pop up with the. There you go. There it is. Thank you.
Nice.
The group, unfortunately, it's not covered by insurance, but it is a flat fee of $350 a month. So regardless of whether there are 4 or 5 Saturdays, I think that comes out to about $75 a group a week. So yeah, it's I wish the insurance would cover such a treatment, but it does not. But I do find that is one of the more reasonable rates out there. So you can always refer them, and we can, what I normally do is a consultation. So I'll meet with them for an hour just to see if they're a good fit. They do have to be fairly motivated to be in the group. So any other questions? It looks like we're about 2 minutes away. I hope you have a great day. Enjoy your free CEU. Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope that this piques your interest in DBT and it makes sense.
How long is this session?
How long is this session? How long is the group? The group is an hour and 50 minutes. So there's 2 groups, one at 9 and one at 11. It's an hour and 50 minutes. It's a didactic group, so we spend a good part of the group educating clients about the skill, and then we spend a good part sort of going around sharing how you apply the skills. It's very supportive. The groups are super nice. Everyone's got good energy. There's a lot of laughter, a lot of tears. It's sort of it's a good space energetically, I think, for clients. They feel very supported and they make big changes. And I think so far everyone in our group has stayed for 2 and 3 rounds. So I've got some people going on a 1.5 years in the group, and so you can really see the growth and the wisdom, and they kind of become the senior members of the group and lead people along. Yeah, so that's it. I know ShrinkSync has more trainings coming up. So if you go through, you can get at least 6 to 8 CEUs through the site right now, which is what I do. I sit there and do. So
Wendy, you've been amazing.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Let's see if that YouTube is writing. Tia is right. Let's just make it ready.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Wendy.
Hopefully we'll do it again.
Yes. We love having you back.
Thanks. Don't forget to do your dear man.
Very sweet. Thanks, everyone. Have a great one. Bye. I think someone else is typing. Julie. Oh, thank you. Bye, you guys. Wonderful. Don't forget to complete the evaluations. Wendy, that was amazing. Love having you back.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Take care.